Welcome into Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I'm Megan Payton. We are talking about 5 players that need to step up in order to give the Steelers the best shot at making the playoffs. But do you guys want more Steelers videos? If you aren't sure how it works here at Chat Sports, we have a lot of different teams that we cover. And the more subscribers on a channel, the more videos you get. That's simply how it is. These videos are free. So if you want more Steelers videos than, say, Chiefs videos, go ahead and subscribe, click the big red button, or go to youtube.com/Steelers TV. So the Steelers did heighten their playoff chances with a win against the Tennessee Titans. I said during our overreactions video, if you missed it, we'll put it in the description, but they would have had a 3% chance at making the playoffs if they would have lost. Now it's up to 18%. That's still not super high though. So I do think that this video is important because there are certain guys on this roster that are going to need to step up if they want to give the Steelers the best shot at making the playoffs. Their schedule is not easy. The last 3 games, they're playing tough teams. They've got the Chiefs away in Kansas City, taking on a red-hot Patrick Mahomes who's looking a lot better. Then they go back home to take on the Cleveland Browns. They end the schedule at Baltimore against the Ravens. So it's possible, and as we've said, the Steelers can essentially control their own destiny by winning out, but we are going to need to see improvement. So this is why today we are talking about guys that need to step up. I'm going to give you my top 5 guys that I think need to step up. This is not in any order at all. For fair warning, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts too. So first guy I have on the list, we're talking special teams. Pressley Harvin III, the punter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has struggled lately, and he's a rookie. The Steelers drafted him in the 7th round of the draft. He did win the punter battle during training camp, so there's a reason why he's starting. I'm not saying that I think that he's a bad punter, but he did have arguably the worst day of his career on Sunday in Week 15 against the Titans. This is something that gets overlooked a lot. When people start breaking down games, oftentimes you don't really think about the special teams. You don't think about the way that they impact a game. But special teams makes a difference. And I'm not just talking about field goals, extra points. I think punters get even less recognition than obviously a kicker. But Harvin has to step up in order to give the Steelers the best shot at making the playoffs. Right now, he has punted 62 times. That's 6th in the NFL. That is out of his control completely. But his gross average yards per punt, that's 43.29. Just to give you some context, that's second to last in the NFL. So that is not great. His long is 64. He's tied at 18th. Also not super impressive. And his punts inside the 20, that's 23 times he has done that. He is tied for 9th, which is a little bit better. But this is all about placement and where the opposing team is going to take the ball from. If they're getting pinned back to the 2-yard line, that makes a big difference from there to call it the 30, 35. So I do think that Pressley Harvin needs to step up. It's a guy that we don't talk about a lot here on the show, but it's someone that can absolutely make an impact. Before we get into the 4 other guys that I have, I'm asking you guys, our pinned comment for today's show is which Steelers player needs to step up the most. There's a lot of guys that we could talk about, but I want to hear your number 1 guy. So if you get the ad break right here, get your votes in. I'll let you know what I think, but I'm going to give you my 4 after this break. All right, before you guys get upset, I am putting Najee Harris on this list. And I understand if you're watching this right now, you're going, what do you mean? Najee Harris, he's fantastic. Why is he on this list? So as I said, before you get mad at me, Najee Harris is on this list because he did struggle last week. And now I understand this is not all his fault. In fact, it's mostly not his fault. He's dealing with an offensive line that we're going to get into that hasn't performed well. And he's dealing with, just the ability as a rookie to, make tackles, and not even tackles, but to stiff arm guys. He doesn't have the protection that he needs from his offensive line, so he can only do so much. But we've seen him be dominant, and we did not see it during the Titans game. He only had 12 carries for 18 yards. His average was 1.5, no touchdowns. I think that when we think about Najee Harris and we think about this offensive line, I start to take the approach of Najee Harris is going to have to do this on his own. If they want their run game to improve and stay strong, to make the playoffs, to stay in the playoffs, they're going to rely on Najee Harris. And I understand offensive line has their problems, but we've got to see Najee Harris be the dominant, strong athlete that he is. We didn't see that as much during the Titans game. So again, please do not take my words wrong. I think Najee Harris is probably one of the best players on this Steelers team. He's a rookie and he's outshined pretty much everyone else on the Steelers offense. So I love Najee Harris, but I just think he's going to have to put in a little bit of extra power, a little extra oomph, as you want to call it, to make up for a lacking offensive line. So I will ask you guys this: does Najee Harris deserve the blame? Go to the comments right now. Type Y for yes if you think he does. Type S for somewhat if you think partially. That's where I land. I think it's only somewhat. Or type N for no if you are saying none of this is his fault. All right, if you guys are like me and you forgot all about Christmas shopping, well, I'm not telling you that these are going to get here on time, but this is the perfect, I'm sorry, I forgot about Christmas stocking stuffer. If you go to chatsports.com/Steelers sale, you can get some great stocking stuffers. They've got the scarf and glove combo, my favorite fuzzy socks. I think this is a perfect, I'm sorry, Mom, I forgot about you. You can give her that. You can also get the cool beanie. They have a great sale going on. This will not be lasting long. So go to chatsports.com/Steelers sale. All right, now, as we talked about Najee Harris, the glaring problem, clearly, the offensive line. So they are just, as a whole, getting put on this Steelers player that needs to step up because, honestly, this whole offensive line deserves to be on this list. It's been the glaring issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's affected Big Ben. It's affected Najee Harris. And it's affecting the way this offense is running as a whole. Big Ben is the sixth most sacked quarterback. Sorry, I lost my words there for a second. Most sacked quarterback in the NFL this season. They've allowed 33 sacks through 15 weeks. And as I said, the offensive line has also really struggled with holes for the run game. As we see, Najee Harris can only do so much with a struggling offensive line, and Big Ben can only do so much if he doesn't have time to get the ball out. Now, I understand we've got a rookie on here. We got Dan Moore Jr. He's struggling, though. I think Kendrick Green needs to improve some of his snaps. Trey Turner, also kind of iffy. Chukuma Okorafor is stepping up a bit. Maybe they'll think about putting Zach Banner in. Probably not. They've had some injuries that have really costed them, I think, a lot of issues and have probably been a reason why this offensive line is struggling so much. But regardless, it's hard to stay in the playoffs or even make the playoffs if your offensive line can't protect your guys. Alrighty, we are moving on to our next player that needs to step up. We've talked about him before on this show. That is Chase Claypool. Now, Chase Claypool, he took the criticism pretty well last week. He got kind of thrown in the middle of it on social media, people blaming him for his celebration after his 9-yard reception, causing the Steelers to run off like 10, 15, whatever seconds off the clock. He went to Instagram before Sunday's game, pretty much saying he's ready to bounce back. He understands kind of where he's at, the circumstances that he has created. So I think Chase Claypool is aware of this, but I'm just going to talk about him as a player for a second. Him as a player, he also needs to step up. And I mean that with penalties. I mean that with receptions. In Sunday's game, he dropped, a pretty easy pass. And so stuff like that can't happen. And that's why he's gotten kind of moved to this number 2 role. Deontay Johnson has really stepped up and been the Steelers' best receiver. Ever since Juju Smith went out, we've been really relying on Deontay Johnson. I think Claypool is going to be needed if the Steelers want to make the playoffs, because you cannot just rely on one receiver. So I love Chase Claypool, and I understand he's young, he's struggling, and he's going to improve, but the Steelers need him to improve. So as fans, guys, you can say, hey, Deontay Johnson's better than him, and The Steelers should get rid of Chase Claypool. That's a discussion for another time. Right now, they need to be in the team mindset of Claypool needs to step up because there's a good chance that he can help them win make it into the playoffs. Now, of course, as we get closer to the playoffs, we are going to be keeping you updated here at Steelers Talk. This is nonstop news, rumors, game recaps, everything that you want. So if you are not subscribed to Steelers Talk, make sure you go to youtube.com/Steelers TV. Press the big red button. I promise you guys, you'll stay in the know with all things Steelers. All right, our last guy I'm adding to this list is not a player. It's head coach Mike Tomlin. Now, he has taken a little bit more criticism this year than in years past. And I think specifically last week, he got kind of blown up in the media for his bad clock management. Now, that was specifically him not calling a timeout before the half, causing the Steelers to have to kick a 56-yard field goal because he wasted essentially a minute off the clock. And instead of being able to run the ball down, kick an easier field goal, Boswell had to attempt a 56-yarder. So he got a lot of criticism from that play. Also, I'd say that him and Matt Canada as a whole, they're going to need to be more aggressive in order to make the playoffs. They typically, I'd say, call a more conservative game. So I'd like to see that change and be a little bit more aggressive. Let Big Ben throw the ball. Let's see what can happen, because this is the way that the Steelers, in my opinion, are going to need to approach the remainder of this season. But maybe I'm, taking a little bit too much of a risk. So I'll ask you guys, should Tomlin and Matt Canada call a more aggressive game? If you agree with me, type A for agree. And if you like them being a little bit more conservative, that's okay. You can go into the comments and press D for disagree. Of course, we are going to have game recaps for you guys after their game on Sunday, taking on the Chiefs. It is going to be a difficult one, but I do think that the Steelers can come up on top.